Well, Christmas was not a big deal. Uh, I don't have any really, really early memories of Christmas at all. When we lived at Carleton, which was this little community where I was born, and I don't remember having a Christmas tree in that house. There might have been one, but I don't remember it. But I do remember that we had a Christmas tree at church, and I went to a rural Southern Baptist church, and they had a Christmas tree, and Santa Claus came to the church on Sunday night. It was at nighttime. I assume it was Sunday night and not a special Christmas Eve service. I don't recall having a Christmas Eve service. But there were little brown bags under the Christmas tree. And all the children got to go up and get a little brown bag. Santa Claus passed them out. And it just had like a candy cane and I don't remember, maybe some popcorn, but it was not anything expensive, or I don't recall it having a toy. I think it was just candy. And then we did not have fancy stockings. As far as I know, nobody had decorative Christmas stockings to hang up at that time. And we did not hang up our socks. We used our shoes. And my grandmother, I remember telling us that that was what people did in European countries, so it was okay. And I don't recall Santa bringing a gift, but Santa always brought us something special like an orange. We did not have oranges on a regular basis. They were not plentiful in the grocery stores like they are now, and if they had been, they would have been too expensive for us to have. So an orange was a really special treat. And I can remember setting our shoes out and getting an orange and a candy cane. And one year, I remember I got after I was a little bit older, a little box, about 4 inches, maybe 3 inches by 3 inches. And it was a little manicure set. And it had, I don't know, maybe a little emery board and a thing of nail polish in it. And that was in my shoe. But it was not anything really special. My grandmother Byerly always put the Christmas tree in the parlor. And at that time, we did not use the parlor in the wintertime. It was not heated. But on Christmas Day, they would open up the parlor and we would go in there. And that was kind of special because you didn't get to see the Christmas tree before. And she had little real candles that were about 4 inches tall, and they were red, but they were kind of faded. They were more wine colored than red. And they were in a little candle holder that had a clip on it, like a clothespin clip, sideways. And she could clip those onto the Christmas tree. And they would light them, but they immediately blew it out because it was a real tree. We usually had a cedar tree because that was what they had on the farm. I do not recall ever seeing a Christmas tree at my grandmother Harold's house. She was a rather plain country woman who did not participate in much folderol. If she went to church, she went to the Baptist church. My grandmother Byerly grew up in the Presbyterian church, and she did not join the Baptist church until just a few years before she died. And that was a big occasion in the community when Grace Byerly joined the Baptist church, and it was standing room only for her baptism. And in the history of Union Baptist Church that came out in the 1980's, they mentioned that particular occasion, that the church was overflowing the night Grace Byerly was baptized. She said she joined that church because of her husband, and all those years when I was younger, we attended the Baptist church one Sunday and the Presbyterian the next. We alternated. And then in summers, we went to both for vacation Bible school, but I digress. Back to Christmas. I do remember one year there were a couple of scooters that we got for Christmas. And then one year there was a bicycle that we all learned to ride, but we just had one bicycle we shared. And there were gifts, but nothing elaborate. Because there were 5 of us after Mary was born, and it was not a lot of money. And so we always had plenty of food. But as we got older, I remember Mother did not like to wrap presents, and I didn't mind. And so I would wrap all of her presents, and then she would just kind of toss mine under the tree in a brown paper bag. At the time, as a teenager, I felt a little bit slighted. Now that I look back on it, I understand exactly what she was doing. But and then by the time I was 14, Mary was born, and then made Christmas all so much fun because she was so little, and it was exciting for her after the rest of us were, Charles was 10, Evelyn was 12, I was 14, Virginia was 16 when she was born. And I can remember her getting dolls from Santa Claus, and things had changed by then so that there were Santa Claus gifts because finances were much better in our home at that time. But I never knew that we were needy. We always had plenty of food and clothes, and there were a lot of people in much worse shape than we were. But we certainly were not affluent at that time. I don't know, the change happened so gradually that it doesn't seem like, when I think about going from the Christmas of my childhood until the Christmas when I got married, and my friend's mother had us Christmas stockings. She knit Christmas stockings for us, and so we had something fancy to hang up. But the change was fairly gradual. By the time I married, my sister Evelyn had already married and had children, and my sister Virginia had already married and had children, and my brother Charles had already married and had children. And so Christmas was generally a pretty big deal, although Charles and his family did not come home at Christmas time. They wanted to have their own traditions and stay at home for Christmas. But do you remember the night we had car trouble on the way? And Shirley Leach came out to Shepherdsville and picked us up. We had gotten past Shepherdsville. We were in South Louisville. And she picked us up and took us to church. And she was going to take us home and spend the night. And I said, no, you have little children. You need to be home on Christmas Day. And this young couple at our church who were singing in the choir, I cannot remember their names. They weren't there very long. But one of them had a stepmother in Bardstown, or a mother and a stepfather in Bardstown, and they were going to Bardstown the next day. And they said, we have 2 cars. So you take one of our cars to your house and we'll pick it up tomorrow. And so they did. And the man who brought the wrecker to get our car that night was named Angel. And then I think we just drove our other car on to North Carolina and had that one fixed when we came back. We always, for several years, we made the trip after we would sing Christmas Eve service at Calvary. We would leave at midnight and drag these 2 children to Knoxville until, I'm going to guess, the early 70s. It was just so traumatic. Mary could not go to sleep in the car, and she was so tired that every time anybody looked at her, she cried the next day. And Matthew realized it was starting to get daylight when we got down there, and he didn't want to go to bed. And so we decided after that we would not go until Christmas Day. that we would go back home after church and sleep and get up and have Christmas at our house. Then we would pack up in the car and have Christmas in Knoxville on the evening of the 25th. And then the next day we would go on to North Carolina to have Christmas on the 26th. And so that was the routine our children had when they were small.